Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex source material and pull out the insights you can actually use. And today, well, today's special, if you're just starting your social psychology journey with Professor Sedgi at Los Angeles City College, consider this your foundational map. Seriously, don't just think of this as, ticking off a course requirement. Social psychology, especially when you dive into it like this, it's really an adventure. I mean, living and working in a place like Los Angeles, it's dynamic, it's diverse, sometimes it's a lot. Understanding why people act the way they do, how influence really works, how you find your own place in all of it, that's like the ultimate toolkit.
It absolutely is. And our job today, really, is to break down the essentials from your course material. We're going to look at the core definition, the big ideas, the pillars of social psychology. And the key thing is showing you how these aren't just abstract theories, right? They're tools you can use immediately, like today. Thinking about a family argument, figuring out your friend group, planning your career path right here in LA. Yeah, this is about giving you a new way to see things. So you can shift from just being in the social world to being, well, a more expert observer of it.
Okay, let's dive in then. Define the territory. So the official definition we're working with is social psychology is the scientific study of how people think about, influence, and relate to one another. Hold on, the scientific study. How do you scientifically measure something as, I don't know, messy as influence? Or relationships? Does that mean you're always chasing numbers, even for things like compassion or group vibes?
That's a really important point. The scientific part is what lifts this beyond just, say, philosophy or gut feelings. It means we use structured methods, we test ideas, we collect data to try and answer those really big questions. It lets us ask things like, is our behavior more about the situation we're in, or is it more about how we interpret that situation? Which one has more weight? Think about that next time you're on the 101. That driver cutting everyone off, is that like a fundamental character flaw? Or is it the sheer stress of the traffic situation? The science tries to figure that out.
Right. And it tackles these huge questions, not just traffic stress, but like core human nature stuff. Would people actually be cruel if someone in charge told them to? Or, flipping it, what really drives people to be ambitious or kind in a super competitive place like Southern California? Is it about helping others, or is it deep down about helping yourself?
Exactly. And that's why the field kind of organizes itself around those three main areas you'll see in the course. Social thinking, how we see ourselves and others; social influence, how culture and situations shape us; and social relations, basically, how we connect and interact. That structure, that's the engine for everything you'll learn.
Okay, got it. Definition down. Now let's get into what you called the big ideas, the pillars. You said if we really grasp these next 6 concepts, it unlocks the whole course, like lenses for seeing LA life clearly.
That's right. These are like foundational truths about being human in a social world. They explain so much.
Okay, number 1, and you said this one is maybe the most powerful, we construct our social reality.
Yeah, this is huge. See, we humans, we really crave predictability. We want to feel like we can make sense of other people's behavior, maybe even control it a little. But the thing is, two people can go through the exact same experience, let's say a challenging meeting with a boss, or even a comment from a friend, and walk away with totally different interpretations. Why? Because they think differently. Their perspective shapes their reality. Your course materials probably mention that famous Princeton-Dartmouth football game study. Fans watched the same game film, but saw completely different numbers of fouls depending on which team they supported. Their loyalty literally constructed what they saw.
Wow, okay.
Think about how you and maybe a sibling see a family issue, something about money or responsibilities, or how you and a friend might view the same job opportunity. Is it exciting or terrifying? Your view, filtered through your beliefs and values, is your reality in that moment.
That clicks. Okay, so if we're building reality based on our thoughts, we got to look at how we're thinking, especially how fast. Which leads right into the second big idea. Our social intuitions are often powerful, but sometimes perilous.
We're built for speed. Our brains do a ton of work automatically, unconsciously. It's like there's this whole processing plant running off stage and out of sight, as the text says. These instant gut feelings, these intuitions, they shape our first impressions, our fears, our relationships. And look, it's often super efficient for quick judgments, but the downside is it can be inaccurate, sometimes dangerously so.
Yeah, you see the peril, like when intuition makes us judge how likely something is just by how easily we can imagine it. So people might worry way more about, say, a plane crash, which is statistically rare, than about driving without a seatbelt, which is way riskier day to day.
Exactly. Or Super relevant for you guys navigating Los Angeles City College and life here, trusting that first snap judgment about someone you meet online or even in class, that quick, maybe harsh initial feeling. Living in a city like LA, you meet so many people, you need that critical thinking muscle, to pause, to question those automatic gut reactions when accuracy really counts, like with a potential collaborator, a new friendship, or understanding feedback.
Okay, so we build our internal reality and we have these fast intuitions, but we're not doing this in a bubble, right?
Yeah.
Which brings us to idea number 3. Social influences shape our behavior.
Absolutely. We are, at our core, social creatures, social animals, and the situations we're in. They exert this incredibly powerful pull on our behavior, often more than we realize. Think about culture. Culture dictates so much what's considered professional attire, what counts as being on time for a meeting, how much personal stuff you share with a casual acquaintance versus a close friend. The norms of your specific neighborhood in LA, or even just the vibe at Los Angeles City College, these define the situation. The course material often uses powerful historical examples, like the influence in Nazi Germany, not to make a political point, but to show how extreme situations can sometimes make people act in ways that go against their own stated values. It's a sobering reminder that the context, the environment you choose, matters immensely for your own actions and well-being.
That's the push from the outside. But then there's the push from the inside. Our own attitudes, our personality. That's idea number 4. Personal attitudes and dispositions also shape behavior.
Exactly. It flips the coin. This is about our internal drivers, our beliefs, our values, our sense of self, our attitudes. These things strongly influence how we act outwardly. Will you bother to vote in the next election? How easily do your friends sway your opinion? Are you likely to stop and help someone who looks lost on campus? A lot of that comes down to your internal attitudes and disposition.
And what I find really fascinating here is that it goes both ways, right? It's not just attitudes influencing behavior, but behavior can actually shape our attitudes too.
That's a key insight. We often come to believe more strongly in things we've publicly committed to or things we've worked really hard for, maybe even suffered for. Think about making it through a really tough semester. That effort often deepens your belief in the value of sticking things out, the value of that education. And this internal piece is so critical as you're figuring out who you are here at Los Angeles City College and beyond. Personality dispositions mean that two students facing the exact same challenge, maybe a tough course load or financial stress, will react very differently based on their inherent outlook, their resilience, their internal stuff. That's the individual shaping their path.
Okay, idea 5 kind of brings the internal and external together, looking even deeper. Social behavior is biologically rooted.
Right. This acknowledges that we're not just products of our environment, nurture, or just our internal attitudes, nature acting through personality. We're this incredibly complex mix. Biopsychosocial organisms. Biology and experience are constantly interacting. There's this whole field, social neuroscience, that's actually looking at the brain activity, the hormones, the neural stuff underlying our social interactions. And here's where it gets practical for navigating LA life. Our biology, evolutionarily speaking, might predispose us towards things like seeking status or comparing ourselves to others. Understanding that biological undercurrent can help explain why social media sometimes feels like a toxic comparison trap, or why competition for internships can get so intense. It's about seeing both the under the skin, the biological factors, and the between skins, the social factors, to really get a handle on stress and well-being.
Okay, and that brings us to the final big idea, number 6, which is kind of the payoff. Social psychology's principles are applicable in everyday life.
Absolutely. This isn't just academic theory for its own sake. The whole point of the field is its relevance. It gives you a systematic, scientific way to ask and answer really important questions about yourself and others. How can I understand myself better? How can I communicate more effectively? How can I influence situations positively? This knowledge has direct, real-world applications. We're talking about improving health outcomes, making legal procedures fairer, like how juries make decisions, even helping figure out policies for a more sustainable future. It's incredibly practical.
Okay, so these principles are powerful, practical, but before we fully trust them, we need to address a common pushback. People sometimes hear this stuff and say, well, yeah, that's just common sense. Which leads us to section 3, the common sense critique, or what you call the hindsight trap.
Exactly. This is a major hurdle. The critique is often that social psychology either just documents the obvious, things everyone already knows, or sometimes that it's dangerous because it can be used to manipulate people. But let's focus on that obvious part. It usually only seems obvious after you already know the results of a study or the outcome of an event. This is a cognitive trap called hindsight bias. You might know it as the "I knew it all along" phenomenon.
Right.
It's this powerful tendency we all have to exaggerate how much we could have predicted something after we find out what happened.
That sounds like it could be really counterproductive, especially if you're trying to learn and grow, say, in your career or
Oh,
studies.
absolutely. Hindsight bias can lead straight to arrogance. Of course, that project failed. It could have told them that would happen. Or it leads to unfair blame. If a friend doesn't get a scholarship they applied for, you might think, well, I knew their essay wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, you skip the real analysis.
You skip the analysis. You prevent yourself from digging into the actual complex reasons why something happened. The real power of learning social psychology, and especially the research methods part, is learning to test ideas before things happen, not just relying on common sense to explain them away afterwards.
Okay, that's the perfect lead into our last big section, the tools of the trade. If we want to avoid that hindsight trap and really understand social behavior scientifically, how do we actually do it? What are the methods?
Right, the how we know what we know part. It starts with a theory. A theory is like a big picture framework, a set of integrated principles that helps explain and predict observed events. From that theory, we derive a hypothesis. A hypothesis is much more specific. It's a testable prediction. It suggests a possible relationship between things that we can actually go out and investigate. But having a good hypothesis isn't enough. How you test it is critical.
And getting accurate results starts with who you're studying, right? Sampling.
Definitely. If you want your findings to apply broadly, say, to understand students across Los Angeles, you can't just ask your friends. You need a random sample. That means every single person in the population you're interested in has an equal chance of being included in your study.
Okay.
If you don't have that randomness, your results might only apply to the specific, maybe biased group you happen to survey. And just as important, we have to be incredibly careful about the wording of questions and how options are framed. Subtle changes in how you ask something can totally change the answers you get.
Got it. So, assuming we have a good sample and carefully worded questions, what are the main ways researchers actually collect the data? You mentioned two big approaches. The first one is correlational research.
Right. Correlational research is all about looking for natural associations between different variables, things that tend to go together in the real world. The big advantage here is that you get to study things in their natural settings. You're not manipulating anything, just observing. Like, do students who attend more study groups tend to have higher GPAs? Or are people who report higher stress levels also more likely to get sick? But, and this is crucial, the massive disadvantage is ambiguity about cause and effect. Correlation does not prove causation. This is probably the single most important takeaway from the methods section.
Can you give an example? The course mentions one about grave pillars.
Ah, yes, the classic example. Studies might find a correlation between the height or expense of someone's gravestone and how long they lived. Richer people might have bigger monuments and have lived longer.
So does buying a big tombstone make you live longer?
Of course not. That's the logical trap. Just because two things are correlated statistically doesn't mean one caused the other.
So what are the possibilities then?
When two variables, let's call them A and B, are correlated, there are always at least three possible explanations. 1, A causes B. 2, B causes A. Or 3, and this is often the case, some other factor, C, causes both A and B. In the gravestone example, C might be wealth or access to better healthcare and nutrition throughout life. That third variable explains both the fancy gravestone A and the longer life B.
Okay, that correlation isn't causation point is crystal clear. So if you do want to figure out cause and effect, you need the other main approach.
Exactly. You need experimental research. This is where the researcher actively manipulates one or more factors to see what effect it has on behavior while trying to hold everything else constant.
And what makes experiments powerful for finding causes?
Two key things: control and random assignment. Control means you manipulate this specific factor you're interested in, that's your independent variable, and you measure the outcome, the dependent variable. And random assignment is the secret sauce. Before the experiment starts, you randomly assign participants to different conditions. Example, one group gets the treatment, the other gets a placebo or nothing. This random process ensures that, on average, the groups start out the same on all other background factors, like intelligence, motivation, mood, whatever.
So it kind of washes out those pre-existing differences between people?
Precisely. It minimizes the chance that some other factor, besides your manipulation, is responsible for the results. So if the groups end up differing on the dependent variable, you can be much more confident that your independent variable actually caused the difference.
Makes sense. Now, quickly, what about ethics? Sometimes experiments sound like they could be intense, or maybe even involve tricking people.
Yeah, ethics are paramount. Researchers distinguish between mundane realism, whether an experiment superficially looks like everyday life, and experimental realism. That's the extent to which the experiment really grabs the participants, gets them involved, maybe even triggers their real psychological processes. Sometimes, to achieve that experimental realism, a bit of deception might be used, but only if necessary and justified. But there are strict ethical guidelines.
Like what?
Things like informed consent participants have to know enough about the study to decide if they want to participate. Protection from significant harm or discomfort. Confidentiality, keeping their data private. And crucially, debriefing.
What's debriefing?
After the study is over, you have to fully explain everything to the participants. Any deception used, the true purpose of the research, answer their questions. It's about ensuring people leave the study feeling okay and understanding what happened.
Wow, okay. This has been a really thorough dive into just the starting point of your social psychology journey. It feels like studying this at Los Angeles City College, using these big ideas and understanding these research methods, it's not just about learning facts for a test. It's bigger than that.
It really is. As you're navigating your life here, defining who you are, what you value, your goals, this course, Professor Segi's class, is meant to equip you. It's about learning to temper that quick intuition with some critical thought, maybe replacing easy judgments with a bit more compassion, and seeing through social illusions to understand what's really going on.
And thinking about careers, this knowledge seems applicable everywhere.
Absolutely. From managing teams in a business to designing health interventions to influencing policy, understanding social psychology opens up so many pathways. It genuinely changes how you operate in the world.
It changes how you see yourself, your connections, your future path. It's powerful stuff.
So let's leave you with a final thought to chew on this week, something directly from what we've discussed. Given how much we've talked about the power of social influence and situations, take a moment and think. How could you consciously tweak your own immediate social environment right now? Maybe it's your study habits, the people you choose to spend time with, even just the physical space where you try to focus. How could you shape your situation this week to better support your own growth, both personally and intellectually, as you start this journey?